will go to plan and work out. I'm Myrddin Davies. I'm a food and drink mentor with the Co-Wine programme, who are sponsoring today's event. And as you can see, I'm joined with a group of panelists. John Turtle, who'll be joining us shortly. We are live. We've got Tania, Kenny, and Becky Jones, and also sort of a familiar face to many of you, Becca Lyne-Pirkis. Before we go any further, I'll just sort of run through some housekeeping. We have got a chat function and ask a question tab that you'll all be able to see on your screens. We're going to be discussing for about 45 minutes, but we really do encourage you to ask questions. This is about making sure that we convey and discuss the things that are important to you and the things that you want to know more about. You can feel free to input your questions as you go, and we've allocated plenty of time towards the end so that we can respond to those questions. But before we go any further, I'd really like you to get to know our panelists and the breadth of opportunities really that the panelists are involved in with the food and drink sector. So first of all, I'll introduce to you John Turtle. John, do you want to say a bit more about your brand, your business, and yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Bore da. My name is John. I'm the founder of Made by Land. We are a fresh oat milk company based in Cardiff, and we manufacture oat milk which is delivered in glass bottles. So it's fully recyclable. We also offer discounts for people who refill their bottles, so that they can use as much as possible. So we have two products at the moment. We started off with a fresh blend, which is still going strong. And we've also just launched our pro blend. So that's more for the coffee experts out there. So our core values are kind of, we want to go strip back down to a healthy, nutritious product. We really care for the environment, and we also care about creating the community.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr, John. And next, we've also got Welsh Sisters, Tania, Kenny, and Becky Jones. And being Welsh Sisters, we couldn't have one without the other. Tania, do you want to share a bit about you as a person and a bit about your company?
Yes, bore da. Thank you very much. We started our company Welsh Sisters in 2018, but we started selling our small batch artisan gins in 2019, August, so we've been going a year. So Welsh Sisters is myself and my sister Becky, and we are passionate about women and the sea and telling stories of their lives from the past and in mythology. So we've transferred and used the botanical in our gins to tell these stories. So we have one gin called The Captain's Wife, which tells the tale of the women that sailed out of New Quay in Digidol, where we're based, to travel the world. They were at sea for 2 or 3 years with their husbands and had children aboard. They had amazing lives. And then our other gin, Morwyn, it tells the tale of a sea goddess that blew up a tidal wave that by legend flooded Cardigan Bay. So we have been going a year, and in that time, we are very conscious of bringing others along with us. So we've worked with local artists and worked on our labels with local artists and art events within our small shop, which is based in UK. So I must have missed something out. So I can hand you over to my sister Becky to add in anything else that I missed. There's probably quite a lot. Over to you, Beck.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'm the other half to the Welsh Sisters, and I'm based in UK in Ceredigion on the West Wales coast. My background is in environment protection and water quality. We're passionate in Welsh Sisters about the environment and protecting it, and also resource efficiency and using everything we possibly can locally and in a sustainable manner. So that's my background. I've also got another business on looking at environment consultancy. So I'm bringing one over to the other. We're keen to help anybody on our journey. That's it.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr, Becky. And last but not least, Beca, your food and drink business, your brand is a bit different to the other two panelists, but also sort of heavily involved in the food and drink sector, and showcasing the wonderful products that we've got here in Wales. Over to you, Beca.
Diolch, Myrddin. Bore da, everyone. Yes, so I'm very different to the other panelists. Those of you who've watched Bake Off may recognise me from that. And scarily, that was 7 years ago that I was a semi-finalist on the show. But before then, I used to work in corporate sponsorship, but decided that that wasn't for me. And so I left that career and started on my journey trying to get myself into the food industry. And so I've got some experience about starting off on my own, and that's the brand is me, the product is me, what I wanted to do, and I wasn't too sure what that was going to be. Went on Bake Off, and then from Bake Off, not knowing what opportunities were going to come from that, I had a very successful TV career doing my own cookery shows on S4C. I still continue to do a lot in broadcast. I do a lot on radio. My second book is about to come out. But aside from all the fluffy media stuff, I also work on the committee for the Food Standard Agency. I work with Welsh Government on the Healthy Weight, Healthy Wales campaign and looking at trying to improve diets and talking really passionately about food and what it means to all of us across Wales. And from that, as Myrddin mentioned, I get fortunate to work with products and producers designing recipes. And I'm currently also studying to be a dietitian. So I don't sleep, I live on caffeine, but I'm very passionate about what I do, and hopefully I'll be able to share a little bit more about how I got to where I am here and hope to inspire somebody else out there.
Brilliant. Diolch yn fawr, Beca. And it always fascinates me when talking to those that are involved in the food and drink sector, the sort of breadth of background and things that different people have been involved with or are currently involved with. And I suppose the brief that we've had for today as panelists really is to share personal experiences about venturing into the sector, setting up your businesses, inspirations and aspirations, your business plan, where do you see yourself going? And I suppose as well, talking about some of the challenges that you've overcome. And I think that the last 6 months have been particularly challenging for all of us, and a period where many businesses have had to adapt or change. But I suppose, first of all, I'd like to pose the question to you. Why did you start up or venture into this sector? What was the driver that made you take that plunge?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So I was very unhappy in my career, essentially. I'd worked in London in corporate sponsorship, and although I loved the industry, I think I'd reached a point where I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I had started to think more about what else I wanted to do. And it reached a point one day where I just went into the office and handed in my resignation, no job to go to, no idea what I was going to do from there, but I knew it was going to be in food in some shape or form. And that really made me push myself and think more about where will I see myself in 5 years' time. And fortunately, through friends, I was put in contact with this lady called Sarah, who owned her own catering business in the area. And she was amazing. She used to do private catering events for McLaren, Formula One, all of these big events in the area, because I lived in Surrey and Hampshire at the time. And she took me under her wing. And I think that helped me a lot, just having somebody who experienced the food industry, and she showed me the ropes. She showed me how to do the accounting side, how to do the invoicing, how to price things, how to just approach people. And she just really helped me. And I think if I didn't have her at the start, I don't know if I'd have come this far. And so if somebody is out there thinking about, I really want to do something, I don't know where to start, it's worth just talking to people, talking to friends, reaching out in the community on social media. We're all lovely people, and we've all been there, and we all want to help, which is why we're here today. And so I'm forever grateful to Sarah, and I do see her every so often when I go back to that area, and she's very proud that I've kind of reached where I am today. So thank you, Sarah. I know you're not listening, but...
Brilliant, Becca. John, what made you, the sort of core values of your business is about sort of a healthy, nutritious product, environmental credentials, and sort of creating a community. What drove you, or what made you take the plunge to start up?
Well, there's many aspects, really. I've been studying health for many years now, and I really enjoy the benefits of what eating good and clean food can do to the body. So many aspects, because we've been plant-based for many years, and we were just finding that we were going through so many Tetra packs of plant-based milks, and also we were thinking, why are we having to do this? Obviously, a lot are recycled, but we wanted to create a product which, going back to basics, like going back to the whole like modern milk round, where the milk's delivered to you, it comes in glass bottles, so it's fully recyclable. We wanted to create it so people can bring them back, and to start going back to more simpler times. We've kind of gone down a route now where things are just so easily accessible to us, and sometimes that's not always in the best packaging. So we wanted to basically help the system in that sort of sense. And it is more difficult to go back to glass bottles. It's harder to process, to package, to clean, to sterilize, but it's so worth it. It's literally hundreds and hundreds of Tetra packs we're saving by offering our milk in glass bottles. And it's also, as well, the freshness of it. Like, we don't pasteurize our milk, we don't heat treat it. We've kept it as clean as possible in order to make it as fresh and as healthy as possible. Like, we always started off thinking, like, why do products last for like a year in a box? Or why do supposedly fresh products last 2 weeks or a month? Like, we wanted our product to be as fresh as possible, and that we don't do any extra work to it. We create it and it's as clean as possible and as fresh as possible. So that's kind of the driving factors, really, based on health and helping the environment.
Yeah, brilliant. And then Tania and Becky, I suppose that there is a saying in business not to work with family, but you seem to have bucked that trend and sort of develop a business jointly together. You're sort of both living in different parts of the country. What was the driver for you to start the business, and how did you go about setting up?
Well, I was a drama teacher in London. I had been for 18 years. I had 4 grown-up children. And I think I felt a change in the air for myself. And I've always been passionate, as Becky has been, about stories, really. Stories about the West Coast of Wales, about women, about untold stories. Because as a geography student in Aberystwyth, I did a dissertation on maritime communities, and I noticed a lot of women that I'd done research on that had children with names like Valparaiso and Melbourne. I was thinking, why are they called Valparaiso Evans? What does this mean? And of course, they had their children aboard the ships like Chile in the harbour. So I found this fascinating. We've always discussed these stories together. And we started making gin with an amazing distillery called In the Welsh Wind for personal reasons. We thoroughly enjoyed our day. We thoroughly enjoyed the gin we made, which was fantastic, I've got to say. We were very surprised. And then we thought, oh, we'll make a little bit more then for our friends, and they seemed to like it. And so it sort of snowballed like that. But I've got to say that we had a lot of help, which is what Becca was saying, a lot of help from In the Welsh Wind, who were just open to discussion, open to ideas, really, about what you could do next. And we've always sort of felt that's a great way to be, is to be open to possibilities in your life. And I think we were both at that point, actually, for both of us, where we were open to possibilities. Would you say that was true, Beck? How does it refer to you?
Yeah, I think come to the kind of point in your life where you feel a change is happening. You don't know what that change is going to be. You don't know the full extent of that journey. So I'd been in the consultancy for environment for about 35 years, and I felt that there was a shift. Like Beca, I had a fantastic mentor, which is Sian Nix-Jones from Chuckling Goat. And under the group called Women Around the Table, she gave you the confidence to start, to just put your boots on the road and just take little baby steps, one after the other. You don't have to know the journey ahead. You just need to take that little baby step. So I think that's our philosophy for Welsh Sisters, is just to start and not to be frightened. There's a huge amount of help out there here in Wales, Business Wales, Cywine. It's just phenomenal. So ask for help and talk to everybody and listen to everybody. On the other side, you have to have a true brand, because you will have people trying to blow you off your course and navigate different waters. And really, you have to know you're a true, passionate, true to yourself brand, and that will hold you fast on your journey ahead.
Brilliant. And I suppose sort of, Welsh Sisters, you've been established, I think, 2 years as a business. In terms of planning your venture, you're 2 years in. Are you still following the same business plan that you were when you started off, or have you sort of developed other opportunities that may have come to you since you've established and been in the marketplace?
I think our core brand values have stayed the same, and that's about using everything that we possibly can local, from the illustrations for our labels and suppliers, the labelers, the people that print our labels, everything possible. So that stayed the same, but we have had to negotiate on other principles. But most of the time, we've stayed true to our business plan as best we can. COVID has had a little bit of a hiccup in there.
Yeah. Becca, you're sort of, as part of your entry, if you like, into the food sector, bake-off was, I'm assuming, quite an important part of your journey. What was that sort of planned, that you were sort of going to develop on the part of your career on the back of bake-off, and or was it something that was part of a master plan that you were putting yourself forward into bake-off?
I'd love to say it was a master plan. It was 2 months of deliberating and being told to apply by family and friends, and I applied late one evening without telling anyone. The following day I got a phone call, and that's what started my audition process. And I think I was dithering to apply because I didn't want to put myself forward for something that I loved so much and was such a big part of my life to get torn to pieces on live TV. So I think we've all experienced that moment where you're putting yourself forward and you don't know what's ahead of you. And me putting myself forward for that show was very scary, but I'm also very competitive. So I knew that if I could keep my head and be true to me and my upbringing and my style and all of that, I knew I'd be okay. I didn't know what I'd get from it. You know, we were Series 4 7 years ago, quite early on in the process, and Twitter was only starting to take off. And so it's different now to what things are at the minute for everyone. But I think halfway into the process, as in the show being aired, I was getting approached by different people, and that ranged from TV stuff, and that was exciting, but also I was approached to teach. So I've been a cookery teacher for the last 7 years, as well as everything else, and got the opportunity to work at Borough Market. And so I think my point is, you have to put yourself forward, regardless of how scary it is. You need to be confident in yourself and believe in what you want to do, because you will get knocked back. We've all had those knockbacks, but you'll also get something good, and you need to remember that and just kind of believe in yourself. And, you know, from those TV and teaching and things, I've continued to put myself forward for things. So, for example, with the Food Standard Agency, I had to go through a whole interview process. So it wasn't, oh, hello, I'm Beca from Bake Off. Can I be on the panel? I had to interview like everyone else. And I think, you know, my feedback was they could tell how passionate I was about the food industry and consumer rights and policies. And they wanted me to be on the committee because I was different to everybody else. And so I still put myself forward for things. It's still very scary, but it's also very exciting, the opportunities that come your way.
And I think developing a brand and sort of being recognisable is key really to the success of any business, and especially in food and drink, because quite often it's the brand that you see first without actually tasting the product. What sort of marketing channels have you been using? What's working for you in terms of getting that brand awareness and recognition? And this is a question for all of you really. What are you using in terms of putting yourself out there at the moment?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So as we mentioned within, the brand is so important, and a lot of people just think the brand is just a logo, when it's not. It's so many more levels and avenues to that. Like it's everything you do, everything you say. It's your core values, it's your colours, it's what you wear, it's where you shop. It's all these amazing things that come back to the brand. And as you mentioned, the Welsh Sisters, it's good that's sort of the basis of where you come from with it, really. So the brand is so important. But for us, we've really focused on Instagram because our target market really like develop and use Instagram a lot. So that was our kind of key market. And it's about trying to create a product which is appealing, because end of the day, we're just creating an oat milk, which is basically, it's not the most attractive thing. It's not the most prettiest thing. It doesn't look as appealing in a bottle. So we wanted to create something that was fun, reflected us. And we also use other avenues of social media, but it's mostly Instagram. But also community. Like for us, we live in a little town outside of Cardiff, and it's nice to go to the local greengrocers, and it's nice to support all these different amazing companies that we've got in Wales. Like we have a lot of stockists in South Wales, so we have good relationships with them, and we shop there. We do what we say. We want to go to these local places, and people want to help each other. Like that's the whole sort of local sort of small scene. It's so nice. Like people will go out their ways to help other people, same way that we help other people as well. So it's kind of, it all works really well. And I think that's what's amazing about Wales. It's got that such an amazing community, and people just want to help. But yeah, a big thing's been Instagram. We use Facebook as well, but Instagram's been our key.
And what about you as the Welsh Sisters? What marketing works for you at the moment?
I think Instagram and social media is really, really important. It has been for us, especially during lockdown. So we were able to build customers' interest in gin and shopping local, or shopping Welsh actually, which was most important, through Instagram and online sales. So through Instagram into online. And it's fantastic. And we make a lot of connections, a lot of friends, but we also made links. We put ourselves out there. In what Becca was saying, we put ourselves out there and we're brave enough to enter competitions, which of course initially was very, very, risky really, because we didn't know anything, but it surprisingly came back very well. And so that has its own snowball effect, Instagram, and we're part of that world. And so it all begins to snowball and has brought us in fantastic customers and a fantastic exposure, which we really, really enjoy. So that's been great for us. And we also have, where Becky is now, we have a little shop in New Quay. So we decided to open that, which has been a fantastic interface with our customers and staycation, holiday makers, and opened up another market for us in that way, hasn't it, Becky? You felt that?
Yeah, it's really, really great to speak to the customers directly. We're selling retail direct to the public, and to have that face-to-face every single day, because we're open 7 days a week, is fab. And it's lovely to meet everybody and see the reaction and get the feedback, and honest and open feedback is brilliant. So we're over the moon with the shop and that outlet, and we can send out from the shop as well as a central point of distribution. So we're very happy with it.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I'd just like to sort of say a welcome to Ellen, who's commented on the thread here, and Mared, who sent us a question. Please do send your comments, thoughts, and questions. Everybody who's listening in this morning. Just in terms of sort of business planning and developing businesses, and one of the things that I come across quite often is that businesses will have a vision, but my role as a mentor really is to break down the steps in terms of achieving that vision. Would you be happy to share what your ambition is for the business? Where would you like to see yourself in 5 or 10 years' time? And maybe if we start with you, John, as the youngest business here, what's the sort of ambition that you have for Made My Land?
Well, it's been a really fast year actually this year. So we've kind of gone. We launched. I think our first delivery was a year ago next week. So it's been a really fast year. It's been an amazing year. And also, obviously, we have the ups and downs, as you all mentioned. And for our future, we've obviously just launched the Pro Blend. So this racks a lot nicer in hot drinks, so more coffees. You can get all the latte arts, which is amazing. So we've just had incredible feedback from that launch. So we want to get this amazing product into more coffee shops, and also we sell in stockists all around South Wales at the moment, but we want to expand that. Because we have all our greens as local as possible, and we want it to go all around Wales. That's our plan. But just with also, it's with the product, we're trying to open up people's eyes to the fact that we should all be eating fresher food and going back to cleaner, fresher food. So that's our goal, is to try and drive that forward.
Yeah. And in terms of Welsh Sisters, where do you see yourselves in 5 years?
5 years, that's a big one. Okay, well, our ambition really is to be able to employ people locally and to be in a position that we're strong enough to do that. That's our one goal. Another goal would be to get our more products on the market and further afield. Wouldn't you say, Becky, that would be one of our main objectives this coming year, probably?
Oh, absolutely, is to get stronger and stronger as a business, looking to develop more employment in the area and float other people's boats alongside our rising tide, if you like, as passionate as we can, and also to offer an opportunity to create a creative hub where people can come and we can share our journey with them and how to help them on their way. So, and this is a key part of that aspiration.
Okay, and I'll move into one question because I think it'll be interesting from your perspective as well, Beca. A question from Mared, who's asking to all of you, did you set up your business whilst working other jobs? And if so, how difficult was balancing both? I think the reality is quite often is that we need money, we need some form of income, and we're sort of starting up a business is a bit of an unknown. So what was your experiences in setting up your businesses whilst working other jobs, and how difficult was it to balance both?
So from my experience, when I told my husband, well, he knew I was unhappy in my job and that I wanted to leave, and he knew I didn't have a job to go to, he said he'd fully support me. Fortunately, he's in the army, and we had a house through the army, and so our outgoings were quite low in the sense that we did have rent, but it was minimal, and we were able to go down to one income, and it was a struggle for a couple of years because I wasn't really working properly, because after I left my job in London, I had some savings. But then I fell pregnant, and that tends to happen, you know. And, you know, I was enjoying being a mum, but again, I didn't have maternity pay. I only had statutory, but I still believed in what I wanted to do. And I think having that time, I was able to kind of still, you know, work with Sarah every so often when I could. And it, you know, grateful for when Bake Off came along, because it kind of springboarded me then properly. And I think it's difficult to know what I would have done if I hadn't have gone down that route. But I think, you know, for me, it was meant to be. I was meant to go on there. I meant to do is reach the semis, and then it was up to me then to push forward with what I'd achieved to see how far I could go. And so it was tough, but I had the full support of my family, my husband, and forever grateful for that.
Yeah. And Becky and Tania, I believe that you are actually undertaking other jobs at the moment whilst developing your business. Can you share some of your experiences on that?
I think I work 7 days a week. To be honest, it's 7 days a week of passion, and that helps you through. I haven't got one boss. I've got loads of bosses, and they're all my customers. So I'm very, very happy to do that. It is hard work. You've got to be completely committed to do it, but it isn't the same as working for somebody else, because you've got your aspirations and your drive and your brand and your beliefs to carry you through. So yeah, I do work doing other things to help fund the Welsh Sisters until we can get strong enough so that it is self-sufficient. That's the truth of it.
And then Tania, have you got anything to add on that?
Well, I think I did stop teaching drama because it was just quite difficult to stretch the two. And then I had the full support of my family to go into Welsh Sisters. But it is the first few years are a struggle. They are difficult. But as Becky said, if you're passionate, you love it, then you're going for it 24/7 because you want to get up in the morning and do it, and you want to stay late and do it. It doesn't really matter. So yeah.
The 9 to 5 turns to more of a 5 to 9 day. And John, what's your experience?
I was the same as well. So I was working another job as well, and you kind of just make it work. You kind of do the best you can to just keep going, and you will always have a to-do list, and that's okay to just have that. Like, we can't always complete a to-do list, but we just gradually work through it, and it's hard. There's a lot to do and a lot of new things as well, especially with the food and drink sector. There's a lot of stuff which we have to do, but we don't know about, and most people don't know about it. But there are amazing networks out there for support for that. But it's just keep going, each day, just keep going, and just keep coming back to the why. Why are you doing this product or service or area? If you've got to have that want, and that will drive you through. But yeah, I like the rest of the team. I had I still got amazing support network from family and friends, and. You get there. The hardest bit is starting, because once you start, it all happens gradually. And then looking back, you think, oh, how did I manage that? But it will be really tough at the start. Really tough, but just remember the why, and that will keep you going each day.
There's some really, really sound advice there from all of our panelists. We've got a question here from Ellen, and Ellen's asking, are there enough selling opportunities for independent producers in Wales, be it in events or in retail or through other retailers? Do you feel that there's enough selling opportunities for independent producers in Wales?
Shall I jump in? I think the independent scene in Wales is amazing. I think a lot of people are asking questions now, where things come from, why do they come from there, what's in there, why do they last that long? I think people are really finding out, and I think that people want to know where the food comes from, because that's what fundamentally goes into our bodies, and that's what that makes us function and heal. I think there's a huge scene there, a huge scene in Wales. I think it's so important. And once you start going to these independent companies and shops and outlets, you really see the whole scene. It's really hard to see it from the outside, but when you sort of get involved in it, it's a massive market out there. And I think it's always going to go one way, I think, and that's going to improve. I think people will go back down to the smaller local shops, because I think that's an amazing place to get all your like good quality food from. So I think there's a huge scene out there, and it's really exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say the independent scene I'm based in Cardiff is amazing, and when I moved back from London 5 years ago, I've just seen it explode. And what's really nice is that everybody's really supportive of each other. So be it if you are a single producer of one type of product, or be you an independent restaurant or a cafe or a shop, everybody's really supportive. You're not competing against each other, because you're all independent and you're all local, and you all want to survive because you all know how much work you've put in. And I think going back to what John mentioned earlier about reaching out to networks and social media, reaching out and just approaching people, because I know so many people who would gladly, if it's a product that fits within their ethos of where they work, they will gladly help you and push that product as well, because it'll pull in more customers for them. And so from what I see and experience and know from people, everybody's just there to help and support, and to drive back that local element of just going down to the local shop to get what you need. And I think during COVID, the independents are the one who worked their socks off, and they have really gained more customers. And I just really hope that those people who have turned to their locals will continue to support them, because that now is the time where they will see if they can survive, because people will automatically go back to the supermarket because it's easier. But they need to remember who was there for them when those supermarkets weren't as accessible, who was dropping off meat and veg and things for you. So hopefully people will still support their local.
Brilliant. And have you got any thoughts on that question, Welsh Sisters?
I think that what we found is there is an interest in place-based products everywhere. So it's not only Wales. So people are interested in Welsh products outside Wales. So that's a really important thing to remember, that they're intrigued by all the things beautiful things that we have, and there's such a high standard. I think that's well worth bearing in mind, that there's a lot out there.
And I suppose one thing as entrepreneurs, and something that's instilled as a personal characteristics, is sort of the ability to be resilient and maybe to experiment or change. And I think that the last 6 months with COVID has in some ways forced us all to look at how we operate, and maybe there have been some changes to our businesses as a result. What would you say is the sort of main challenge that you've had to overcome as a business, be it in the last 6 months or sort of previously in how you were developing the business? John, do you want to?
There's a couple aspects really to that. The first thing with our project, because it's fresh, and you're kind of having to like explain why it's fresh to everyone. So it's kind of sort of like unraveling the sort of normal, and kind of you have to change people's impression of it. And also people just think that plant-based milks just go in teas and coffee. So you're kind of having to completely open up to what's possible. So that's what we do on our social media quite a lot, is trying to show people what it's good for. It's not just for teas and coffee. So it's kind of like trying to change the normal of what we all think that milk's for. It goes in so many things as well. But you mentioned about the COVID. Yeah, it's been massive ups and massive downs during the last 6 months. Like we find it's been quite consistent through the whole sort of period, but it's all gone to different ways. Like, because we had lots of cafes that were using our oat milk for selling, and also for making and baking. And obviously they were temporarily closed. But then also like places like the bakeries and the health food shops and all the sort of other different types of local shops, they were increasing their sales massively. Some places went up like 1,000% over that time. So we kind of, on average, it was very similar in a sense, but it was just different avenues. And you kind of, we're lucky in small business. One of the sort of the benefits of it is the fact that we can adapt quickly, and we can listen to the rules and we can follow the guidelines, but we can kind of completely change our systems quite quickly if we can. And so like you mentioned, Becca, like a lot of people were going back to more the sort of small independent shops because they were open, and that's what we can all offer. We reacted, and we kind of just keep going, do the best you can until we were told to stop, really. But being a sort of basic commodity, we were able to produce. We had no problems. We followed the guidelines, so we can still get our product out to the places, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to agree how independents have reacted within the last 6 months to adapt and survive. I think that's been the main thing. And we've all seen how everything has gone digital. So I think those who may have not been so tech savvy or, you know, up to speed with social media and so forth have had to really get to grips with things. And we've all learned together through many platforms and quizzes every week with family and friends. I don't think anyone's done a quiz for quite a few weeks now. I definitely haven't. But for me, you know, the cookery schools I taught at sadly have had to close permanently. You know, they haven't even just closed temporarily, they've permanently closed. And some of the work I've lost, but then other work came in place of, because I was commissioned to do videos cooking with my daughter and giving parents activities to do and, you know, inspiration and recipes. And so I feel very fortunate actually that, you know, some of the work that I do just moved to being virtual and digital, and I was able to continue. And then I also found new things, exactly like John. You're resilient, you adapt, you survive, you push on because you want to and you believe in what you do.
Brilliant. And has it been similar for you, Tanya and Becky?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I've had to learn so much more about social media and online stuff that I never knew before. But the other thing, before COVID, we had a challenge with one of the names of our gins, and it could have been quite devastating, but we decided just to fold and change the name immediately, and that was beneficial to us. Well, I would say don't see it necessarily as a problem if you have a challenge. It might be a beneficial thing that you could open another avenue and carry on in a better way. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, and we've had another question here, which is asking, what do you think the biggest sacrifice is you've had to make to follow your passion? I think that the passion is coming over really, really strongly in our discussion this morning. What do you think is the biggest sacrifice you've had to make to follow your passion?
I mean, for me in the early days, it's because there wasn't much income coming in. You had to really cut back on being social and seeing friends and just being honest with them, telling them, you know, they knew why you'd left your job and what you're trying to do. And they were also very supportive. And because you're self-employed and you are pushing you or your brand, your work hours, as we've mentioned, aren't 9 to 5. I mean, I never switch off. I literally am on my phone, which winds my mother up a treat that I'm on my phone all the time. But it's work. And if I don't necessarily reply to emails straight away, but I'm thinking about replies and thinking about what's coming next. I mean, my laptop, the desktop has got to-do lists and, you know, my diary and things. And so it's, you do miss out on social things, but people also understand. And those who don't, well, are they the friends that you need around you? Because those who are really good friends stick around and will support you through whatever.
Very true. Becky and Tanya, what would you say the biggest sacrifices that you've done to establish Welsh Sisters?
I think, as Becca says, it's maybe your social scene has gone down a little bit, and because you are 150% committed to getting your business off the ground, and that is the main sacrifice, is that your mind is elsewhere and it's slightly preoccupied with how you can be adaptive and flexible and adjust, and where those challenges can become opportunities, and where those hurdles can become kind of levers for new business. And your mind is going flat out 25% of the time. So That's what I think the main challenge and sacrifice has been, is that preoccupation with getting the company off the ground.
Brilliant. And John?
Yeah, kind of a similar story, really. Like, it's hard because it takes up so much of your energy and time, and obviously income as well. Like, we had to make our money for this business work hard, and we started off smaller, and you invest when you can. But it's also difficult because you can quite easily go down the route of burning yourself out really quickly. So we were kind of have to be consciously conscious of the fact that you can just basically look after yourselves as well. Like, you need to make sure that you're eating well, you're sleeping well, because otherwise you don't get as an efficient setup from you, really, or output really from what you're doing. So it's basically, yeah, one of the things was just learn to actually look after yourself and make sure you're taking those little times out, because you come back better. It doesn't make sense at the time, but little breaks or having a good sleep or taking that weekend off because you need to, in order to not let you slip down and burn yourself out.
Brilliant. We are running slightly over time, but we've got one final question from Magwen, who's saying, diolch am y sgwrs hynod o ddifyr. Listening to you all has been truly inspiring. I've been thinking too much about starting my business. If you could give me one top advice to get me going, what would you say?
Do it. Just go. Like, you're obviously thinking about it all the time, and just, if it's preoccupying your thoughts more than anything else, then what are you waiting for? Because there's no time is a good time to start. Never. You just need to literally just go for it. Tell whoever is your support network that you need the support. And if, just do it, because you won't regret it. Don't regret not doing it. That's my big thing. Just do it. Yeah.
Are there any other thoughts apart from just do it from our panelists, which I think was quite succinctly?
I also think it's like small steps. Like, just make that first step, because you're never going to know all you need to know at the start, because that's part of the journey. Just keep doing little steps and break it down. Like, just do small steps at the start and just think, okay, like, my business could be happening in 2 years' time, but make small steps towards it, because they all add up. And just don't get overwhelmed by it. Just make little steps, and over the course of time, those steps will be massive, absolutely massive. So just, yeah, as everyone else saying, just start. Like, it's incredible, and you'll learn so much along the way. It's not about the end goal, it's about what you do along the way, and that's where the real magic happens. So go for it.
Brilliant. And just a final question to all our panelists, so that you have an opportunity to share with us. If you want to find out more about your brand or buy your products, where should we go, or where should we look online?
Well, www.welshsisters.com have our gins available. We can send anywhere. And there's a special code that we're going to put on today.
Brilliant.
For us, it's, if you check out Made by Land, .co.uk, and also check us out on social media, and drop us a message. Drop us a message on Instagram. Any questions, or if you want any help or advice, if we can help in any way, we will. So please get in touch, because that's the best way of doing it, is ask questions.
Absolutely, and I'll reiterate what the other panelists have said. You'll find me on all of the social media platforms. I'm always there giving advice on disaster of macarons or what have you. If anybody wants to ask me any questions about starting up as well. But also, my new book will be out at the end of the month. And it's called Feeding My Army, and it's an insight into my family life as a military wife and family connections going back to West Wales, as well as broadly the military community. So it's not just the military, it's for everyone, hopefully. And it's something I've been working hard on for the last 3 years. So it'll be out at the end of the month.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you all to our amazing panelists. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in this morning and contributed to the discussions. Starting a business is a journey. it is about taking steps, and it's about taking that first step. There is support for the food and drink sector through Cowine. If you log on to cowine.com, there'll be more support there. The next crowdcast, I believe, is at 1 o'clock and is about street food and tastes of the world. So I suggest that you all have something to eat before the next crowdcast, otherwise you're going to be hungry for the whole of the afternoon. Diolch yn fawr iawn, bawb, and I hope it's safe to say that the first crowdcast of the event has been successful. Diolch bawb.
Diolch.
Diolch i ti.
Bye.